Hey Shackers, it's Asif Khan here. I played the Nintendo Switch 2. I was invited to the Switch 2 Experience preview event here for press in New York City by Nintendo, and I got to check out a bunch of stuff early, including the system. So let's get into it. In handheld form, it's definitely a bigger system. It's the same thickness as the original Nintendo Switch. They did swap out the screen, so it's an LCD screen. It's no longer OLED. But the resolution is 1080p and the screen now supports 120 FPS and HDR. So it's a little give and take there, right? Like HDR means that the colors are more vibrant, but LCD means they're less vibrant. But then also that improved frame rate is something that I think is extremely valuable, and I'll get into that in a second. So in handheld, those are like kind of my first impressions. They didn't really have a whole lot of places where you could play it in handheld where it wasn't tethered to something. So it's hard to really judge the weight. So that's something I'll probably judge whenever I ultimately get to review the product. It launches in June, so who knows when or if Nintendo's going to send out review units and if Shacknews even gets one. But we did get to go to the preview event, so I want to talk to you about what I saw, what I think, and a bunch of games that I don't necessarily have enough to talk about for their own preview, but they would fit here very well. So if you want to hear about Donkey Kong or Mario Kart World, we have like video previews of both of those. We're going to have articles on the site for both of those. I will say that those are the two highlights of the event. Mario Kart World showed off a new 24-player gameplay format, which shows you that the Nintendo Switch Online has a little bit better of a framework. Then again, you know, F-Zero 99 is on the original Switch, and you can play with 98 other people at the same time. Granted, that's like a 16-bit graphic game versus a, you know, current generation, maybe 4K, they wouldn't tell us, resolution for Mario Kart World. But yeah, if you want to know more about Mario Kart World, I just recommend you watch that video. Donkey Kong Bananza is like a 3D platformer that might be like a spiritual successor to Mario Odyssey, even if it isn't a proper sequel or anything. It just seems like it could be a really, really big game. And it's coming out in July. I love to see it. This is the best looking Donkey Kong character model I think there's ever been. The fur was super noticeable, and the gameplay was just downright fun. Destructible environments. I described it as like Wreck-It Ralph meets Deep Rock Galactic, but it's a Donkey Kong game. So yeah, both of those games definitely highlights of the preview event. And if you're lucky enough to go to the Switch 2 experience between now and launch, check those games out for sure. Otherwise, I did get to try out a bunch of the other games. I tried out Drag X Drive. This is an interesting game. It's like 3v3 basketball, and it's like wheelchair-based robots with like a, you know, it's like wheelchair basketball, which I believe is a Special Olympic sport, and you know, there's rec leagues and stuff for it. It's cool to see that the representation in the game, but this is the first game that they showed me today that used the mouse feature, and I just thought it was really finicky. If you're trying to go forward, and this is realistic, right? Like you have to push forward with both arms, and if you're even just off a little bit with one arm, you turn. And in a game where you're trying to, you know, run back and forth like baseline to baseline in a basketball style game, that little nuance of like, oh, I turned, so I screwed up my entire game, like that got really frustrating and really lame really quickly, and it was not a good first impression for what you could do with mouse gameplay. I don't really think we're gonna see many games where you put both controllers on your table or on your lap or whatever. I did get to try out another game though. It was kind of like you're using your left remote, your left Joy-Con like a regular Joy-Con, and then the other one was down on the table, and that was Metroid Prime 4. That was outstanding. So that was a demo that was in 1080p, 120 frames per second, and they were showing off the mouse gameplay. So I was moving with my left thumb, and I was aiming with my right hand on the mouse. The other thing I'll say about the mouse functionality, it does not appear to be as much of a gimmick as some of the other stuff we've seen in the past, like the infrared reader or even the HD rumble. It's kind of funny to say this. HD rumble in a mouse is actually kind of cool. It creates this new tactile feel. The other thing that they noticed that they mentioned in the, I don't know if it was in the Direct itself or it might have been in a Q&A that I got to attend later in the day. Either way, the embargo is passed on it. There's gyroscopes inside of the Joy-Cons. So even like when you're on the table in mouse mode, tilting it, like twisting it, you can do things with that input device that you can't with other traditional mice. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's going to lead to a lot of different unique gameplay experiences, but also like if you're a PC gamer, I don't necessarily think this is going to be enough for you to be like, oh man, I'm going to get a Switch 2 and forget my PC, because this doesn't have a keyboard. But I think it's a very interesting experience. And also, like, if you're into performance, Nintendo Switch 2, having a game that runs at 120 frames per second, I think is great news. So I really enjoyed what I played of Metroid Prime 4. It's coming out hopefully soon. It still doesn't have a release date. That's weird. But yeah, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond coming out sometime this year. And that the focus at today's event was definitely mouse-based gameplay. It was one of those highlights of the show for me, for sure. I also got to try out like Cyberpunk 2077 running on Switch 2. It's the Switch 2 Enhanced Edition, but it's like a very early build. They had alpha gameplay written on the top, and it says not indicative of the final result. This is a game that has launched in poor condition on other platforms, so I kind of gave it the benefit of the doubt today. The thing that really stuck out to me is there was an NPC I was talking to, and her hair looked really weird. And I don't know if that was a poor implementation of DLSS, which is that NVIDIA technology for super sampling, or what exactly caused that. But they did say that there's been a common complaint all day from people who have been playing the game, so it was noticeable. I wasn't the only person who noticed it. Other than that, it's Cyberpunk, so it has the shooting gameplay that I wasn't completely hot on. Everything you would expect from that game was there. I'm not sure if that was the best thing to be demoing at this event, honestly, in the condition that it was in. But you know, it is supposed to launch on June 5th, so we'll see. Hopefully they have a better showing at launch or even before then. Because, you know, some of these demos were probably thrown together in recent months, so maybe I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I do want to also be transparent and say that that was one of the worst third-party experiences I had playing games at the show today. They also had that Switch 2 welcome tour. This was made by the producer of Nintendo Switch 2, so the developer is actually a hardware guy, and it really does showcase the hardware. I don't know, do we know what the price of this thing will be yet? Probably not. I don't think they've announced price on a lot of these games. And that was a problem I had with today's event, honestly. Not enough transparency on that stuff. I mean, hell, the Nintendo Direct didn't even have price of the product, you know. But yeah, we're going to get this Nintendo Switch 2 welcome tour is going to be a launch title, but I don't know how much they're going to charge for it. And I think charging for it's messed up. This is like a glorified tutorial, but it also kind of showcases what the system can do. Like there was a demo I played where it was like, can you guess the frame rate? And then it would be like a 30 frame per second ball bouncing, and then there'd be a 120 frame per second ball bouncing, and you had to choose between the two. Each little thing by itself probably isn't worth the money, but like you do have like an escalation of gameplay. Like there's like, you unlock new things, you get medals for placing very highly, and then you unlock even more difficult things. There's this really basic game that I played inside of this welcome tour where it was like spike balls falling from the sky and you had to move your little guy. It was like a UFO to dodge to not get hit. I thought that was actually quite fun, and they threw in some more stuff like, hey, you have to catch this gold coin now, or whatever it was. There's a ton of games like that, so it's like maybe the sum of the parts won't be terrible, but I still think that's a really weird game to charge money for, and it would have been a perfect pack-in. And with the price of the system where it is, and all these other things, because it's being priced at $449 here in the United States, I thought that a pack-in would have been like a nice goodwill gesture. And I doubt this game is going to sell crazy. So like, it's not like they were taking money out of their own pocket here. So I can understand how people are a little salty about this game. Having played it, it's not a bad experience, but I even said it while I was playing it. I didn't know at the time because they didn't tell us what anything cost at this event, which I thought was kind of messed up. And it led to a ton of misinformation being spread on the internet. Hopefully Nintendo will clear up a lot of this over the next few weeks. But we don't know what the price of this game is still, but we know it's going to cost something, and it is going to be a launch title. But I would not consider it like an actual launch title. So yeah, you have two games that like Drag X Drive and this that just, you know, they're demoing the platform. It's a new platform. They want to showcase what this system can do. A lot of what it can do is performance based, and then the major new gameplay mechanic is the mouse capabilities. And I just think something like the mouse capabilities are better highlighted in a game like Civ 7 or Metroid Prime. I wasn't very impressed by Welcome Tour. It wasn't the worst experience I had at the show. I definitely think Dragon X Drive was the worst game I played today, and it's mainly because I didn't like the gameplay mechanics. I didn't like how finicky they were. The idea of controlling two mice at the same time is just kind of weird to me. It's not how PCs work, obviously. But, you know, good on them for trying. I understand, like, it is good for representation of people in wheelchairs. I'd be interested to hear what people think of it once more people get their hands on that game. It kind of felt like the 1-2 switch of this event, and I think there's definitely a comparison to be had there. One of the more exciting things that I got to try out at the show was Tears of the Kingdom. Once again, they didn't tell me what resolution it was running at, but it was definitely higher than the Switch 1. They didn't tell me what frame rate it was running at, but it was definitely higher than the Switch 1. So let's just assume, for the sake of this video, that they were running at 4K 60 frames per second, because it looked really good. They also had HDR effects in there, so you know the lighting in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, stunning already, and the graphics and the art were already stunning already. This game looks amazing now, and anyone who's played Tears of the Kingdom, if you have used the Ultra Hand power that Link has, the frame rate drops a lot of the time when you're using that. That's not the case in the Enhanced Edition. So I think that is one of the things that I really liked about this. And some people may roll their eyes and say, hey, you already played that game, or you already bought that game, or that game's old. But I think it's just showing that this thing is going to add value to existing games. And Nintendo actually put out a list of games that are getting free updates as well. We got a decent amount. ARMS, Captain Toad, Super Mario Odyssey, Bowser's Fury and Mario 3D World, Clubhouse games, Link's Awakening, which needs it, Echoes of Wisdom, but two Zelda 2D games that kind of need it, Game Builder Garage, I don't know how many people have that, Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and Big Brain Academy, Brain vs. Brain. Those are all getting free updates to improve playability on Nintendo Switch 2. So that's kind of cool. Maybe they'll add to this list over time, but I saw a lot of people today saying that, and I am filming this on Wednesday night here in New York City. I saw a lot of people say that, this is just a cash grab by Nintendo. And, admittedly, like, they're going to charge you from some other stuff, or other things are going to be part of the expansion pack. I think they announced later in the day that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom's expansion versions, if you already have the Switch versions and you have Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack, right? So that's a lot of money you've already spent. If you have all of that, you will get these updates for free. So I do fall in that category. So I'm pretty happy that I'm going to get to play Tears of the Kingdom at a better frame rate. And I don't have to pirate it, and I don't have to run it on a PC. And I'll get to play it on my Pro controller. So I thought that was pretty cool. While I'm on the topic of controllers, let's just talk about it. They made the Joy-Cons bigger. They made the joysticks, the analog joysticks on the Joy-Cons, larger and better. They just feel better on the thumb. But they did miss on something. I really do like the trigger buttons on the Steam Deck because they're analog and they're pressure sensitive. Nintendo claimed that they didn't want to do that because that affects the reactiveness of the button. I'm not sure if that's necessarily true or not, but that's what they said at the round table today. I still think it's a miss. I think that like a game like Rocket League or a racing game is so much better when you have like an analog trigger button. So I think that's a miss. The Pro controller is not very different than the original Switch Pro controller. They added a C button to it. I'll get to what the C button does. Yeah, it wasn't a whole lot different. So I thought that was kind of disappointing that they didn't really improve on it. I don't think the D-pad changed either. which it's not a good D-pad. I use third-party controllers. I think the good news is, though, that Joy-Con on the original Switch, if they don't have drift, you can use them with the Switch 2 via Bluetooth. You're not going to be able to attach them to the side because it's a larger device and the Joy-Cons are larger. The other thing that I thought was shocking, I cannot stand the grip controller on Nintendo Switch 1. The grip controller on Switch 2, because of the size difference of the Joy-Con, was actually viable. I used it in several demos I played today, and I didn't hate it at all. And that's just not the case. Like, handing someone the grip controller in the Switch era was kind of like handing them the weird orange Mad Catz controller back in the N64 days, right? I think that's like a good thing from Nintendo, that at least third-party and first-party legacy controllers will be supported. It seems like they're going to try to do something when it comes to like backwards compatibility with hardware, which is, you know, a nice thing because these things cost a lot of money and these new peripherals cost a lot of money. So back to the C button. They showed off on the Direct. They showed a demo of Game Chat, and Game Chat is like their version of Discord, and it has a video chat component where it's optional, you know, and you don't have to buy this thing. I think it's $50 for the camera, but they did say that other USB-C webcams will work with it, but it remains to be seen if everything will work because the Switch 2 camera has this like face detection that's probably software based, but they're using it in games like Mario Party, where like your body will be transposed into the game or your head will be in like a little bubble next to your character. So these things are fun, optional, not really necessary, but the C button is interesting at the very least because there's this chat function where you can broadcast your gameplay to your friends, or they can watch what you can watch what they're playing. And in the Direct, the video that they showed, the streamed gameplay, especially in handheld, looked really choppy and weird. They did show us another video, I think after the Direct. Doug Bowser came up and showed us another video where it did look like the Spectate video was running better. Once again, this is a preview event. That demo specifically was hands off. It wasn't even, I didn't actually see it working except in Mario Party, and I didn't want to wait in line for it, so I just kind of watched it. I think it's an interesting idea. I think it's interesting that they thumbed their nose at Discord and they just made their own, but we'll see just how good it is. And when you think about when your friend streams a game over Discord, sometimes it gets pixelated and weird too. So I don't know if that's just an issue that all these screen share apps are dealing with, or if it is a Switch 2 specific thing. But at least Nintendo's trying to internet. So I thought that the camera and the C button was kind of interesting. So yeah, they put the C button on everything. They announced the GameCube Nintendo Switch Online app, and they're accompanying that with a wireless GameCube controller. That got a ZR button. That's the traditional, you know, rectangular one, but also a teeny tiny ZL button and a C button at the top. So it's a different GameCube controller than the one that was available for the Switch. It's different than the one that was on the GameCube, obviously, but the form factor was there. They did say that if you bought the GameCube controller for the Switch and the adapter and all that, it would still work with the Switch 2. So a lot of the legacy hardware, it does seem will work, and the Switch having a GameCube controller already, it's nice that you'll be able to use it on the Switch 2 if you bought it. There was a really cool like GameCube Joy-Con controller that came out. That obviously won't work on the handheld version of the Switch 2 because the way that Joy-Cons attach is completely different. So yeah, but yeah, I just, the headline here for me is that the grip controller was not bad, and that's really surprising because I've maybe used the grip controller on my Switch for like 3 minutes in the last 8 years, and I played several demos today with the grip controller, and I thought it was actually pleasurable. It was like pleasant, and I think it has a lot to do with the size of the Switch, and the size of the Switch 2, and the size of the Joy-Con 2. So I did mess around with the Joy-Con themselves. I got a chance to like hold the thing in handheld and pull it on and off. It's not too heavy. I would have to weigh it, and I'd have to like hold both of them next to each other to really have a better idea of just how heavy this thing is relative to the Switch OLED. It didn't seem materially heavier, but the actual act of removing the Joy-Con I thought was easier and less janky than the Switch 1. Also, you know how you could kind of wiggle the Joy-Con on a Switch 1? That's not really the case here with the Switch 2. A lot of people are saying, oh, there's a little bit of wobble. It's nothing like the current Switch. So I think it's better. I think Joy-Con, better. Not great, better. The one thing I did try, and I gun to my head, I will never play this way at my house, but they had Street Fighter set up, and they handed me a right Joy-Con and the other guy a left Joy-Con. Playing games with the right Joy-Con is still weird because the analog's really close to the buttons and the shoulder buttons. The shoulder buttons on the Joy-Con, I'll say this, they're better. The ZR and ZL definitely improved. They're wider and they have better button travel than the original. Also, apparently they double as the metal mechanism that lines up the Joy-Con when you connect them. So it's metal on one side and it's magnets on the inside, basically. So a lot of people were worried about the port breaking. I removed and attached the Joy-Con 2 like probably 15 times today, just on that one machine that they had set up there. I don't think that it's even possible to break that thing by removing it, like or putting it on, because the way the magnets work, it lines it up before you're even connecting. So I think it's better. I think it's a sturdier system than the previous Switch and previous Joy-Con. Pro controller, kind of a meh update, but there's so many third-party controllers that, have better D-pads and have all these things that, like, 8BitDo or Hyperkin. Like, there are other companies out there that I think still make somewhat better controllers with respects to the D-pad or triggers or whatever. So I think there'll still be a market for that kind of stuff because they didn't really take too many chances with that. But they did say that the existing Switch 1 Pro controller will work and all these other things will work as controllers on the Switch 2. But I just wanted to talk about input on the Switch 2. Oh, I did play the game. I did get it hands-on with the GameCube controller, and I tried out F-Zero GX. The cooler thing there, and they said that they're going to do this with multiple games on the Switch Online app. Most people remember that the GameCube was during the 4:3 aspect ratio era. So a lot of these games, when you play them, it looks like the NES game on Switch Online or any of these other ones where there's a black border on the side or whatever. They actually went through the effort of making 16:9 versions of these games, and I really think it was impressive. I love F-Zero, so I just played F-Zero GX. It was enjoyable. I don't know, I wish I had more time with it because I would have jumped into Wind Waker and some other ones, but these Switch Online games, they don't really improve the game very often. They try to stay true to what the original was. So in the case of F-Zero GX, I think the cool thing is they're bringing online play, so you're going to be able to play like 4-player split screen on your console, but it's going to be like 3 people playing remotely, online. They also announced a feature called Game Share that I think is going to be kind of cool. It reminds me of the DS era, like where you could play kart with friends if they were near you. So you're going to be able to share games locally, which I thought was kind of neat. It was kind of just a whatever announcement at the Direct, but I checked out some of the games I will just watch, right? Because like I've already beaten Kirby in the Forgotten Land, so Kirby in the Forgotten Land got a graphical and performance update, but then it also got an additional story, like DLC. That's the other thing we're getting. Elden Ring is coming to Switch, and it's going to be like the whatever edition. And Cyberpunk 2077 is coming to Switch, and it's going to be the whatever edition. So a lot of these games have been out, and they've already had DLC. So when you get these whatever editions, they are going to come with like every DLC. So I think that's going to be a nice value for people. But yeah, really the highlights of the show were Metroid, the mouse gameplay on that, and Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is going to be really fun. Obviously Mario Kart's cool too. That multiplayer gameplay in Mario Kart, 24 cars in Mario Kart or karts, that's intense. When you're in first place, it is brutal. But yeah, I thought there was some cool stuff there. The first party lineup was kind of anemic, but so was the original Switch 1 launch. You have to remember, like, we had Splatoon 2 come out in the summer. We had Mario come out in the fall. So right now we know that the system's gonna launch with Kart. They announced a bundle with Kart. We still don't really. There's a lot of questions about how much these games are gonna cost. I did go online and I did see that, like, there still are going to be $60 games on Switch 2. Not every game is going to cost $70 or $80. I believe Kart is the first game that I've seen that costs $80. Kind of across the board, Nintendo needs to have more clarity about the price of all this stuff and be more transparent so that misinformation isn't spread, but also the people can make purchasing decisions. So I would say it was a critique that I had for Nintendo at the whole show. I didn't know the price of anything. And I also didn't know, except for Metroid Prime, everything else, they didn't tell us what the resolution or the frame rate was. But boy howdy, playing Metroid Prime in 120 frames per second at 1080p with the mouse gameplay, that is going to be a memorable thing from this event. I really thought that was a great showcase of just how cool that this thing could be. One thing I thought was really neat is, like, when you have when you're using the mouse with one hand, if you feel like it at any time while playing, you can just turn it back to regular controller and the controller knows. So you don't have to, like, pause and say, oh, I'm switching to a different. No, the system and the game knew that I had switched how I was playing. And then it went into just a regular 2 analog setup. So I thought that was really cool. So, like, I feel like there's better games out there that could have showcased the mouse than, this Dragon X Drive. Like, I would have loved to see, like, Mario Maker 2 enhanced, right? See what that would have been like. But all in all, I understand why people are a little subdued from this event, from the news around this event. But having hands-on with some of these games, it's a very magical experience to see the art of Nintendo displayed in 4K and the art of a first-person shooter like Metroid Prime 4 displayed at 120 frames per second. For the love of God, Nintendo, give us a new F-Zero game that runs at 120 frames per second. I think it's really cool, too, that the Switch 2 screen in handheld supports 120 FPS as well. I think that's really damn impressive. So those are some key differentiators. 1080p is a slightly better resolution than the Steam Deck and the previous Switch OLED. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that they showed us today. We're gonna have some Treehouse streams over the next few days that will probably give us a little bit more clarity. But yeah, I wanted to share my initial thoughts. I'm buying the thing if I don't get it for review, and even if I do get it for review, I'll buy it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this thing. Let us know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. I spent as long as I could at the event trying it out, messing around with it, playing the different styles. The highlights were definitely Donkey Kong, Mario Kart, and Metroid. On the third-party side, I was kind of underwhelmed. Although, like Hades is great. I'm not going to argue that Hades is a great game. But, it's like we've already seen it. It's been in early access. And I think that's going to be a refrain from a lot of people. Like, we've already seen Cyberpunk, but we've never played Cyberpunk in... I guess you can play Cyberpunk in handheld on a Steam Deck now. You never played it on a Nintendo system, right? And the last time CD Projekt ported a game over to Switch, it was The Witcher 3, and that ran like poop. So it's just refreshing to see games that don't run terribly on the system. But yeah, let us know if you have any questions. I understand how the price is dividing people here. I think it's really telling that the Switch 2 Direct itself did not have a price point. It makes me wonder, did they even know what the price was this morning? Or did the tariffs come into play? And I'm not making excuses for Nintendo. If you think they're price gouging you, maybe they are. We'll find out once we look at their margins, right? But I have a feeling that this was a reaction to, or like trying to prevent more damage. Because if they priced it at a point and then the margins disappeared because of these tariffs, I think Nintendo would have been slapping themselves in the forehead. But I think it's fair to question did they have to move it up as much as they did? So we'll find out once they report their financial results, or once people start doing teardowns of the device when it comes out, iFixit or whoever. We'll get that information and we'll report on it once we do. Right now, this is a preview. My initial impressions are that this is the best Nintendo hardware we've ever gotten, and it's got some stunning games already. The draw distance in Kart World was stunning, and just the variety of gameplay that I had, even in a 20-minute demo of Donkey Kong, I thought was excellent. So that's going to do it for now. Let me know what you thought about the Switch 2 Direct and what you think of this preview I just gave you and the other previews in the comments section below. Let me know if you're buying it too. I'm curious. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and have a great day. We'll see you next time.